Okay, so we're going to get started on our vertical slider. Now I have my browser window quite wide because this isn't really responsive just because of the orientation of how the slider is. So it's not going to look good on like a smartphone or anything like that. That's not really what this is geared for. So I'm going to just keep this a little wider and just click back and forth for now. In our HTML, we just have our project starter, and I have a link to the Font Awesome CDN because we will be using icons for the buttons. So let's start off here. Let's change this to vertical slider. And then we're going to have a container that wraps around everything. So let's give this div a class of slider-container. And there's basically three separate parts. First, we have the left dash slide. So this is going to be, the text area. So we'll have an H1 and a paragraph, and then the right slide. And I'll fill these in a little bit. But the right slide is going to be the images, right? So they're basically just going to be divs with background images. And then underneath that, we want our buttons. So let's say action dash buttons, and our first button here is going to have a class of down dash button, and I'm going to use a Font Awesome icon, so FAS, and we want FA dash arrow dash down. Okay, so I'll go ahead and save that. Wait, is that right? No, FAS space arrow down. And then for the up arrow, we'll just take this button, copy it down, and we'll change this to up and change this icon to up. And now we have our buttons. So for the left slide, let's go into that div, and we're just going to have a bunch of divs with an H1. So for this H1, we'll say nature, flower, and a paragraph. We'll say all in pink. And then each div is going to have an inline style with a background color, so that way when you want to add new slides or new divs, you just throw the background color in here rather than creating a whole separate class for it. So let's say background color, and we'll make it FD3555. So if I save it, we're going to see that. Now we're going to have three more of these, which I'm just going to paste in because it's the same thing, it's just different colors and content. So if I save that, you can see what we have here. Now for the right slide is going to be just a bunch of background images. So I'm going to grab that, and I'm just using links to Unsplash images, just to stock images. So you can see we have a div with a background image URL, and we have 4 of these. Now if I save, we're not going to see these right now because we don't have any content within the div, and there's no height or width applied to the element. So we're not going to see the images just yet. Now one thing I want to mention is because of the way this slides, one side goes up, one side goes down, we have this first div, this nature flower, is actually going to go with the last image div here. Alright, so if I look at this last image, I'm just going to copy that URL and paste that in. You can see that's the pink flower. So the way you would do this if you want to add more is if you add one on to the end here, you're going to add one on to the beginning here. Okay, see the last one here is flying eagle, and if we take a look at this, we get the flying eagle. So that's the order of the elements. So now let's jump into our CSS and let's get started here. So as far as the font goes, I'm going to use Open Sans. So let's say family equals Open plus Sans. And we're going to change this to Open Sans. Okay, and I can make this smaller here. So we'll make that smaller and make this a little smaller for now. Now the body, we actually don't need all this stuff like display flex. I just want the font family, and I want the height to be 100 viewport heights. So it's going to look like that right now. And I want to just set a reset on the margin and padding. So for the universal selector, we'll set margin and padding to 0. That's going to remove the margin and padding from everything. Now as far as the slider container goes, which is wrapped around everything, So the slider container, I'm going to set the position to relative because we're going to be setting everything inside of it as absolute within that container. And then just setting the overflow to hidden and set the width to 100 viewport widths, so VW, which will take the whole width, and same with the height. This is going to be VH, viewport heights. All right, and then we'll go ahead and start on the left slide. So for the left slide, I want to set the height to 100%, and let's set the, actually let's do the width first. So the width is going to be 35% of the container. Okay, the image part is going to be a little bigger. The image part will be 65%. And we're going to position this absolute, and from the top 0, and from the left 0. And then what we want to do is target the immediate divs inside, which are each of these here. So let's say left slide immediate div, and I want to set for that the height. I want the height to be the entire thing, so one of these should take up the entire height. So the div will be 100, let's do 100%, and then width will be 100%, but it's 100% of its container, which is 35%. So if I save that, now we can see this nature flower, and it takes up the entire height here. And when we add the slide functionality, it'll show the next one. Now we want to style this a little better, so let's display flex. So each div will be display flex. Now it's in a row right now, that's why it's horizontal. So we want to change the flex direction to a column, and then we can align both horizontally and vertically. So align center, align item center, and then let's justify content center, and that'll align it that way. And then let's also make the color white. Okay, and then let's grab the H1, so left slide H1, and let's set the font size to be a little bigger. We're going to set that to 40 pixels, and we'll add a little bit of margin bottom, because remember we took the margin off of everything, 10 pixels to separate it from the paragraph part. And then I just want to move it up a little bit, so margin top, I'll set a negative margin, 30 pixels, which will pull it up a little bit. Alright, so that's the left slide. Now the right slide, let's say right slide, I'm going to set the height to 100%. I'm going to position absolute from the top 0. And then from the left, I'm going to go 35% because this width is 35%. So for the right slide, I'm positioning it absolute within the container. So I want to start it here, which would be 35% over from the left. All right, and then we want to set the width of it to 65%. Okay, and then to actually show the image, let's target the divs, so right slide direct div, and I just want to set some background properties like background repeat, set that to no repeat. We already have the background image set inline, right? That's already set right here, so I just want to add some other background properties like the size. So let's see, background size is going to be cover. We want to show the whole image, and then background position is going to be centered on the X and Y axis. We still can't see it because we need to apply a height to it. So height and width are going to both be 100%, so it takes up the whole part there. And now we can see the image. Now this isn't the image that we actually want to show with this nature flower, but like I said, since the way that we're sliding them in, when we get to our JavaScript, we're going to set it so that this is the right text or the right left slide for this image. But for now, let's go ahead and style our buttons. So we're going to have some general button styles, but before we do that, I just want to target the slider container action, what do I call it? Action dash buttons and button. And I mean, we could put the general styling in here as well, but just in case you wanted to add other buttons somewhere. So this is going to be positioned absolute, and as soon as I do that, you can see up here, now there's two buttons here, but they're both in the same exact spot right now. I'm going to move both to a position of left 35%. Okay, so that's going to push them over, and then let's go from the top, we'll go down about halfway, we'll say 50% down. So now both buttons are right here, and we want to make sure they're always on top, so let's do a z-index of 100. All right, and then for the down button, so let's grab this here and say class down dash button. I'm going to set a border. Actually, let's position it first. So we can use transform and then translate on the x-axis, because what I want to do is move this button over this way to the left. So if we put a positive number in here, I'm going to just do 100% of the element. It's going to move it over to the left, which I don't want. I want it over to the right, so that's going to be, I'm sorry, that's going to move it to the right. I want it to the left, so that's going to be negative. So now it's on either side of this line right here. All right, and then as far as the borders go, actually, you know what? We'll do that in a second. Let's first do the up button. So this one is going to be up button, and we want to actually move this one down. So we're going to do translate Y. I'm sorry, not move it down, move it up. This one here, I want to move up 100%, so we'll do negative 100%. So now you can see the positioning of these arrows. Now for the styling, so the general button styling, let's go up here to button, and let's set a background color of white, and let's get rid of the border, so border none, and let's make the color a gray. We'll do AAA, and let's make the cursor a pointer. Let's make the font size a little bigger. We'll do 16 pixels. Let's do padding 15 pixels all the way around. Okay, so you can see that looks a little nicer. And on hover, let's say button hover, set the color to 222, just a little darker. And we don't want any outline, so any button in the focus state, we want to set the outline to none. All right. Now if we hover over, it gets darker. Now I do want to have some rounded corners on the bottom for this one and for the top for this one. So down where we have these down and up buttons, let's just add on the down button, we'll say border. We're going to say border. This is the down button, so let's do top left radius and set that to 5 pixels. So you can see that this has the rounded corners here, and then we're going to do bottom left radius. So now this side is rounded. I want to do the same on this one, but the opposite side. So I'll just copy that, and instead of left, let's take this and change that to right. Okay, so now those buttons look pretty good. Okay, and it's obviously this doesn't do anything yet because we need to add our JavaScript, so that's what we're going to do in the next video.